Good evening and welcome to In the Metal. In the Metal is a behind the scenes look at the world of independent watchmaking. And we try to go inside the workshops, inside the atelier to talk to some of the people whose lives are dedicated to the creation of some of these extraordinary timepieces. I have to say, over the last number of weeks, we have been very fortunate to have some of the absolute best watchmakers in the world come on and have a chat with us. And you know, there's one watchmaker that for a lot of us, including some of the other watchmakers, that if they ever had a watch with this man's name on the dial, you could say that you've done all right in life. So we will be very happy to introduce the wonderful Kari Voutilainen in a few minutes. I say we because I am joined from the United States in North Carolina by none other than Dan Spitz. That would be Dan Spitz, the former Amtrak's heavy rocker, the master watchmaker of the... Is that right, Dan Spitz? I think so. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm good. Glad to be here, my friend. How are you doing today over there in Irish land?
Hey, Irish land is absolutely beautiful today. The sun is splitting the stones, as we say here.
You must have sent your crappy rainy weather over here, because that's what we got.
That's what we send on our postcards to keep you guys out. So we're it's
just keep the sheep, keep the sheep, keep the sheep.
That's it, man. So what we got is we've actually had amazing weather over the entire coronavirus crisis. And I think it's been a really big help to a lot of people here. But the weather has been spectacular today. There are hundreds of people out and about, so who knows? Hopefully we're not going too early. So here, Dan, do you know who we have on today?
I don't even know what to say. Like, I try to compare this to like heavy metal. It's like I had to meet one of my idols, backstage. It's like I got to meet Joe Perry, the guitar player from Aerosmith, who's my idol, or I don't even know. That's what this is for those who know or don't know who Kari is. If you don't know, then you've been under some kind of rock somewhere. Or if you don't know, then you are a collector and you're somewhat new to high horology. You need to know Kari's name, because he is what the rest of us, as far as watchmakers, strive to be. He set pathways and standards above any corporate company ever had, as far as everything across the board, not just finishing, not just the mechanics, not just inventing his, the next level of escapement, with two escape wheels. He went and bought his own dial factory. I mean, you want to talk about someone who has like OCD, like past OCD. So, I'm trying to do everything myself for my timepiece here. It's so difficult. I'm 3 years in, and he's gone way past that. He just buys the companies and then runs them properly.
Absolutely.
I don't even know where to start, because he's an incredible person.
More than a watchmaker, he's a master watchmaker of. Look, a lot of people refer to Kari as the watchmaker's watchmaker, and I can see Kari sitting there in the background going, "Oh man," But it's true. People refer to Kari as the watchmaker's watchmaker, and they all look up to him. A lot of today's emerging talent have experienced Kari as a teacher, as a mentor, as a supporter, an encourager, and it's so. As I said, his achievements are not only as a watchmaker, but as a mentor as well, and also with the absolutely incredible way that he runs his own atelier, his dial company, as well as a number of other involvements in a number of other companies that permeate out through that sphere of independent watchmaking. But here, do you know what? Time is precious, and Kari Voutilainen's time is even more precious than mine. He's been sitting there for nearly 5 minutes. So can we go to Moitié in Switzerland and welcome Mr. Kari Voutilainen? How are you this evening, Kari?
Hello, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Kari.
Yeah.
All good, all good. I hope you didn't mind our introduction, Kari. We're very honoured to have you on In the Metal tonight, and it's a great privilege. So it's a great vote of confidence in what we're doing as well, because what we're doing is, as Dan said, it's different. We're trying not to look at the shiny front face of the watch industry, but to go behind the scenes and into the ateliers and the best workshops in the world and see what's going on there, what kind of equipment is being used, techniques, and I've been lucky enough to have a very prized possession beside me here that you might recognise, and I have spent hours in there again today. It's one of my prized possessions, Kari. Until I have actually got a Voutilainen on my wrist, it's that is a close second. So, so just reading about the techniques, etc., and the fastidious nature of how everything is done to perfection, how nothing happens by chance.
Yeah, nothing happens by chance. That's true.
Yeah,
it's hard work. So Kari, what I like to do is give a little background to people who might not know your past history and the struggles you had as a watchmaker to get where you are. Somewhat the beginnings. We know, first of all, you're a stranger in a strange land in Switzerland. You left Finland for another freaking cold place. We don't know why. You can't get away from the snow, but at least you got away from the darkness. And you ended up where you are via Wostep, of course. But you started watchmaking school in Finland, correct?
Yeah, I was in Finland. My father had a watchmaker friend, and then his workshop was just across the road. He was selling watches, and he was repairing watches and clocks, and that was my inspiration and the connection to the watchmaking. And it was when I went to the watchmaking school. I mean, when I was a young boy, my parents, I like to do things with my hands. And when I was something like 12, 13 years old, my parents did ask what I would like to do when I'm grown up. And I said that I don't know, I want to work with my hands and to be independent. That was my dream. And when I went finally to watchmaking school, it was first time for me that I was really wow, that's for me. And since that, I have the same feeling that.
So that was the Finnish watchmaking school, the famous. Yeah. So you did like 3 years there or 4 years?
3 years.
And then you headed to Switzerland. Was Parmigiani next, or somehow you got into Wostep?
No.
How did you make your way to Wostep?
No, first I was working 1 year in one retail shop in Finland, repairing watches and clocks, and it was in northern part of the country, and I thought it was cool, it was nice, but I said it's very dark during the winter and very cold.
Oh, I got a story about that when I was on tour. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I thought it's good experience, but not for the lifetime. And then finally I found Wostep, and I ended up to go to Wostep, and that was something like you're entering a castle, and you said, "Wow, that's something I have never seen before." And I saw that there's a lot of complicated watches and all kind of striking watches and whatever. And I saw there's another course on complicated watches. And that was 1988. And I did apply for the complicated course, and I was accepted. So I had 1 year between these two courses. I went back to Finland, and I was thinking now I had to earn as much as money as quick as possible. So I started to work as an independent, of course, to repair watches and clocks. And I set up my small repair shop in town. I was lucky enough to rent a workshop in one retail shop. And I had tools, because in the school we had to buy tools. The school didn't offer any tools, so I had my hand tools and so on. And then I was working 1 year. That first experience as an independent, and I made enough money to pay my school fees and to have money to buy tools and that sort of things. And I did return to WOSTEP in 1989.
Okay, so my funny story, I was on tour playing Helsinki, and we get into the hotel 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was the time of the year when the sun never goes away. And they said, we're staying in this beautiful place. It's on a resort. You're going to love it. And, we had like 2 days off before the show. It was a long travel from somewhere. And I remember, I'm half asleep coming off the tour bus, and I put the key in my room, and I open up the door, and they left the curtains open, and I'm on a lake. Like, I'm looking at a lake, and all of a sudden a boat goes by, and the guy's water skiing at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
You guys don't stop over there.
Yeah, that's normal.
So I don't know if you know this, Kari, but I'm also went to WOSTEP in Neuchâtel, 95 and onward, and did courses there, as well as under the strong arm of Antoine Simonet, as you know, who probably sold you most of your tools while you were there too. He's a unique, amazing, incredible person such as yourself. I think we all know if it wasn't for him, there'd probably be none of us. He's a groundbreaker. I think he needs to get even more recognition outside of his country, and I'm actually trying to do that by pushing his name, because he took a very kind liking to me while I was at school. And he took me privately to the little tool dealers in their little garages before anyone else could get the tools, because I had the disease really bad. I started when I was 8 years old with my grandfather, with Patek Philippe. He was also a watchmaker. Yeah. So I know he inflicted some of his pain upon you, I'm sure, because you didn't leave WOSTEP. You liked the pain there so much, the pain and pleasure, that you continued on to instruct. That's correct, right?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was that WOSTEP, the second course, I was without any work because I did close my business. I didn't have any, and it was winter was coming, and I was thinking that I will finally take some time, because I like to do sport, skiing. So I was thinking that I will ski during the springtime. My wife she said, it's no problem. You can stay in Switzerland and ski for a few months and come back. So end of the course, Simona was asking what I'm going to do, and everybody had work, and I was saying, yeah, I think I'm going to ski. I said, oh no, that doesn't work. So I ended up to work in Parmigiani then. So no ski. And I did work 9 years in Parmigiani.
Wow.
And and that was the experience in the way that because when I was in school, there were a few guys visiting the school, because Simona, but then there was somebody called Mr. Miklos, Richard Miklos. He came to school a couple of times, and he was making his pocket watches, tourbillons, and all these chronometers, and I was getting really excited at that time to see his work. And when I was in Parmigiani, I went to see. I wrote a letter, because there was no emails or something, so I wrote a letter to Mr. Miklos that we met in the WOSTEP, and I would like to come to visit you and see how you are making your watches. And I went to meet him, to see him a couple of times. And that was something that I was getting really excited, because I saw his workshop and his tools and his passion and how he was making. And already in the watchmaking school, when I was in school in Finland, I was dreaming that it would be nice to make my own watch. And so I was getting really excited. And my colleague in Parmigiani, Mr. Melan, Shahan Melan, who was already retired at that time, so he was more than 70 years old. And he said that you should make a watch. You should, because he was doing also his own stuff. He made pocket watches and that sort of things, repairing and restoring, but also creating. And I started to make my first watch at that time. So I had double life. I was working during the daytime in Parmigiani.
Right.
And I was working at home. So I was starting to buy tools, and I finished my first watchery 1994. So spending my evenings to do that.
So you were buying tools. That's where you found the Puceau, probably, and you were on your way to becoming the true independent you had set forth in your brain a long time ago as a young child. That was your path. Your path was kind of set for you. You just needed to find it, and it surely looks like you did. And you know what? I've found now that I'm interviewing more and more people that Parmigiani was a platform for a lot of people that went through that workshop. So we got to give some props to Parmigiani for hiring people in need at the time in need as we come out of schools like WOSTEP. And again, I'm trying to send that message to everyone that almost everyone we speak to here somehow, some way has gone through that special school back then, because we're all old now and bald. WOSTEP. And Antoine Simonet, who a lot of times he's also aligned the jobs for people that need them. Like, say, if Kari wanted to stay in Switzerland, where is the only place back then we could get our hands on complications. In America and the United States, Kari, even though back then it was almost nobody except for myself who came out of WOSTEP Neuchâtel, they look at watchmakers here like we suck. We have no talent. Luckily, I changed that rule a little bit, this much, I don't know, whatever, but
no.
Antoine Simonet, he hit the courses he wrote for all of us. Really, really set a generation of people into motion for independence. He didn't take no for an answer. Like what the story Kari just said. You got to keep moving. You got to keep going and moving forward. Find your way into what you want to do. It took me a long time to start my own timepiece as well. It takes a lot of money and a lot of funds. You most of the time you can't live and do a life doing it. It's very difficult. And you have to have all those machines. Luckily, Kari was in Switzerland. He could bop around to friends who might have a Hauser M1 somewhere and borrow it for a couple nights. You can't do that here in the United States. The machines don't exist.
Not yet.
But anyhow, the world is getting small that you can find tools today through internet. But it's also like for me that when I started, when I was in Parmigiani, so I didn't have any tools. When I went to Parmigiani, Michel said, "Okay, welcome. I offer your work, bench, lamp, but you have to bring your tools and you buy the chair." 250 francs for the chair. I mean, it was bloody expensive.
This is Michel Parmigiani.
It's a different world, We had to write letters.
I mean, so anyway, I bought it, but so that was like, and then I've been building by myself. But it's also that I met a lot of my colleagues later on. That many people they want to be independent, but nothing comes without sacrifice. And like by myself, I have been sacrificing that working, and I was also buying and dealing watches, make money, and always investing back to watchmaking. So buying tools, buying movements, and then selling and buying, and you make money, and then you're able to buy some lathe or whatever. And that's how you can build up things, but it doesn't happen in one night. And I have many colleagues, they started to, when I studied as an independent, at that was a time that there were companies in Switzerland, they needed people who were assembling watches or doing repeaters and so on. And these young guys, they started and they didn't have any tools. So even that, you have to start to buy things. So it's an investment. But it's even more bigger investment if you want to start to make watches and you don't have anything.
Yeah. So I have noticed that in your book today. How important the building up your tools was, because as you said in it, that there's modern tools that can do anything well nowadays, but there's certain old tools and old machinery that no modern equipment can come near in terms of the quality of the work. And so, but they're not making those machines anymore, Kari. the old ones. So finding those old brioche machine, or finding the lathes and the different tools you need, has been it's been a labor of a lifetime pursuit, really, to build that up. And as you even say, when you get one, then you need another to have as backup, because if you're producing watches seriously, that you can't afford to have either one breakdown. And so I noticed that anyway, with how important the tools were to you.
Well, that's, I mean, you need tools, and you have to find, but it's also, I've seen that sometimes you are waiting for years. I need lathe, or you need, for instance, engine turning machines. I was looking more than 10 years, and suddenly you find two. And then, for instance, the two last ones I bought from 3 last months. So it was a few years ago during Christmas time. I was looking internet at, oh wow, there's a one for sale, and it was pretty expensive. But I was, and just after Christmas, I was paying all the bills, and so, and it was a long time that I didn't see one. I mean, for years. And anyway, I did bid. I got the machine. 2 weeks later, I saw again one more. I was broke. I couldn't buy that anymore. Few weeks later on, I was offered to buy 2 at once. Then I had money. I bought 2, all of them from United States.
What is these Chablins? 70s?
No, engine turning machines.
Engine turning machines, yeah.
So you're stealing our machines back over there. You thief.
You put them to good use, you know.
You owe us. You owe me, dude. You owe me some dials for my watch.
All right.
So, you know, Kari, this is the story I try to explain here as I start my timepiece here and start my shop here to manufacture a small quantity. I'm one man. It took me here the last 2 years just to do the restorations on the vintage machines that I have to obviously get Switzerland and France, and then buy 2 or 3 Chablin 70s just to get what I need and get them working, because they don't exist here in the condition we need them. And I try to keep telling people, you know, it's like you just said, it's a very long process. Relax, get a side job if you're a young watchmaker. Try to find that one machine somewhere in Switzerland, find friends. Somehow, if you can get to Switzerland and get to one of the incredible schools over there to go to, that will change your life. The WOSTEP program or Henrik School, the KWHCC, I highly recommend, is another past WOSTEP instructor owns this incredible school in Switzerland. That's what changes your life. You know, Kari made that journey from his home country to Switzerland, and it changed his life. I made that journey, and it changed my life. So be patient, and hopefully, you know, if you're a United States watchmaker, hopefully in the future I can help you by spending some time in my future larger workshop here. So, Kari, we're just trying to show them that, yeah, you know, you're stealing our machines, I'm stealing the Swiss machines. There's no Finnish machines for me to steal.
Make any machines. I mean, they're doing machines, but big machines. Like,
but also, what the other message I'm trying to get out for independent watchmakers is the ability to make more than one watch a year. We have to use CNC. But what the message I tell them, Kari, is it's not CNC like you imagine that it comes out of a machine like little bubblegum things and we just put it together. Our CNC machines are more like prototype machines. That's actually what they're called. And we're doing very low volume parts. And then the parts are almost as raw as if we made them on a Hauser Jigbora or coming off the Chablins, whatever parts they are. They might be a little bit finished, a little bit better, but the work we have to do to those parts it's still exemplary. It's the same finishing work. It's the same anglage. It's the same perlage. It's the same. Nothing really changes. It just enables us to have repeatable parts that are exact. So if somebody buys one of your timepieces number 37, number 137 is the same parts, the same precision across those boards. They're not just handmade, and some are run better than other timepieces and movements. So I know that you're an extensive user of the Haas machines. They're throughout your entire facilities everywhere, even making the main plates and so forth, which is a choice not many make, especially if you're in Switzerland. It's usually a Kern or something like that. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit why you chose Haas? And do you run CAD? Did you go to school for CAD and CAM yourself? Because I know you had to start at the groundwork somewhere with just one machine. You know, we know you have many now. Like I have many machines here. I mean, I built my own machine because a Kern is too big to fit through my front door. But can you tell us a little about your experience? Because I know you have a few people that sit there full time and design CAD now, but rewind a little bit and fill us all in.
Well, perhaps it's more easier when I explain a bit my story. That when I started as independent, first I was alone. I was doing restoration. I was doing work for other companies to have money and to be able to finance watches, because you have to buy case and you have to buy this and that, and then you make an evolution. And then when I was alone, I started to have so much. I was 1 year alone, and I thought that it's not very nice. It's more nicer to have some people with me. And first Watchmaker started, and they started to develop slowly. And then I noticed that to use Ebosch, it's not in the longer term. I can use, but in the end of the day, I have to do it by myself if I want to see long run. Mm-hmm. And then there was a question of to buy machines. So the Ebosch, the movement or the parts, they doesn't drop from the skies. You have to do them, or you have to buy them. So I prefer to do, because I realized that when you do it by yourself. So when I was doing restoration and my first watches, when you do by yourself, then you can always do better, because when you have a know-how, so with the know-how you are able to do better. But if you are relying on supplier, so you are relying on the quality what your supplier can give it to you. So that's the main reason why I want to do it by myself. So I'm a watchmaker. I can't use CNC machine. I don't understand how I understand how they work, but I can't operate them. So, for instance, today what I'm doing watches, movements. I'm doing casing, hands. For the moment, I have 2 unique pieces what I'm working on. So I'm doing practical work. That's what I love. And today we are 25 people in my workshop altogether, if I count all the stuff making watches. And then in the dial factory, it's another story. There's another stuff. But with watchmaking, so we are 2 guys who are drawings. They are doing constructions. So I don't want to do that, because I don't want to isolate behind the screen. I don't like office work. I have to do it. But what I like is my bench work. I'm trying to spend as much time as possible on the bench. We have 4 guys doing parts. So last year we did 16,000 parts for 50 watches, 8,000 heat treatments. So we do heat treatments as well by ourselves. I bought a professional oven, and so we are doing hardening and tempering. Mm-hmm. And Haas machines, because for me, the cost of the machine and the quality is unbeatable. I have 3 milling machines, and I have 3 lathe, the small office lathe, and we are operating with them. And in our dial factory, we have also the same machines, and we have been modifying, for instance, the lathe, that we are able to. There's like a mechanical, I call it.
I saw you put somebody, I don't know who there is working for you who did that. I saw you put a Shablin 102 milling head on the Haas lathe, so you can cut gear. You're probably cutting gears with that, correct?
Yeah, but that's the first one. And then two later ones, or the new ones, more sophisticated in the way that we have really made it's nice. one is made that we can turn the head in all the directions, and we can do all the milling, all the pinions and the wheels, and we can do whatever, all the turning, barrels. And it's also like a horse machine is nice that the bed, the cross slide is very large. It's very deep, so you can put a lot of tools. It's the only one which you can put up to 6 tools and a milling head. So with the 6 tools, you can do a lot of things in one go, and that's the main. Like you can machine the barrel in one go. So you can cut the teeth, and you can do inside and broach the hook and the hole and outside, and you cut, and the barrel is machined. And like that, you can ensure the precision of the barrel. It's centric. The teeth and the hole in the middle. It's perfect. You don't have to take it out and put it again and do another operation, and then so.
So to just so people understand, Kari, you somehow made it from the one-man show to having the next step was you had someone who knew how to utilize CAD, SolidWorks, probably something similar, and CAM, and you're designing your first main plate and movement for maybe a Vinct 8 or whatever it is. You're designing more traditional on paper and giving it to them to put in, and then you oversee. Is that how you're doing it?
But it goes all the time like that, because I'm those.
You're old school.
Yeah, I'm old school. I can see. Some papers, drawings, levers. Drawing all the time with them, so they are doing drawings or whatever, but we are drawing together.
Excellent.
You also run a very democratic kind of structure in your atelier, if I'm right, in where there's it's an open plan. It's a very, if you like, Scandinavian open plan where, as I think you said, that even so a young watchmaker with a good head on their shoulders can come up with a great idea. So you delegate well to your watchmakers.
Yeah, I mean, I see in the way that by myself I can do certain things, but it's also the educational part. But also I have noticed that the most important thing is the motivation. It's not the school success, it's the motivation. And I like young people it's nice because they are motivated, they have enthusiasm, and when they have a right character. And I would say that the motivation, but there's also another thing which is important. Is like in France we could say it's savoir-être et savoir-vivre. Like that you have an attitude that you want to learn, and you want to do as well as you can. Yeah. And with that attitude, you are open to learn, but you're open to accept that I don't know, but I will ask. And you make a mistake. Oh, I'm sorry, I did mistake, but how can I do better? Mm. And when you have an attitude, that right attitude, you will learn. Like a guy who is playing piano, it's perhaps 5% is a talent, it's 95% is an exercise. And in our profession, it's exactly the same. And when you have a good attitude and you want to learn, you will learn, but it will take time.
I think, people ask me, well, they look at my profession and what I used to do, as far as guitar, what you just said actually holds true. They say, how could you go from playing guitar and standing in front of all those people in Madison Square Garden with blasting Marshall amplifiers, and then now you're like sitting alone in a room at a bench, like in silence. And, the similarities are just straight across the board. Because like you just said, sitting in my room alone as a child for every waking hour I could. I couldn't wait to run home from school to get my guitar and be alone in my room with my best friend, which was my guitar, and over and over, repetitively try to do the same scale over and over. It's a sickness that you have to have inherent OCD qualities, which almost every great watchmaker that I hang out with or have talked to, I'm sure your OCD is probably completely off the chart. We all have that. And it's that perseverance. And I think me and you know, as both as past instructors of watchmaking, that we see certain people with that inherent quality that they're on a quest. You know, they have that OCD. They want to. They need the food. They want to learn. I'm sorry, I did it wrong. I'll go back to my bench. But they really want us to show them, you know, the Simone way. I show you a little, you learn the rest yourself. Yeah. Back to your bench. The hairspring is right, but it's not right. Go back to your Spitz, back to your bench, you know, and you figure it out. And those are the people that can problem solve. And Kari is doing a wonderful thing, which is part of this whole platform of what I'm trying to transmit to the watchmakers out there, and our collectors, Kari, who love to be a part of us and back independent watchmaking, true independent watchmakers, which is that we give back to the young watchmakers, that we give them a chance to sit next to our old brains and pass on the knowledge that was passed on like to us, even though we had it a lot harder. We had to write letters. We had to knock on actual wood doors of humans to ask if we can sit at a bench to learn from that master. Now they have the internet, you know, they get to cheat a little bit, but you know, unfortunately they get a lot of wrong information as well. So we want to be a good platform for the correct information. We all want to thank you for whoever is in your facility, especially in that top room with you, learning that you're passing on, not just your knowledge, but your business knowledge, because you made it to a point, you put a cap, a very important cap that sets independent watchmaking, you decided you wanted to only make approximately a maximum of 50 watches per year, I think is mainly what you strive to cap off at, because you've seen a lot of the things we've all seen, which is companies, independents who are in a bad time period, let's say in their corporation or whatever you want to call their business avenue, they're having a bad year, and they reach out to somebody in a suit and a tie for money, and then 3-4 years later they find themselves without a company. And I know you don't want that to happen, so you put a cap at 50. Other people put a cap at 10. Some people have gone through that bad times and they're back home and they just want to make 3 or 4 tourbillons. I think we can all figure out the names that are out there. There's many of them, and it's pretty amazing that you could actually do 50 and you're helping all these people to learn. And we haven't even touched upon your dial factory yet. We're just trying to get a good background of how you got where you are to give other people that knowledge. You know, we're seldom speaking to people such as yourself. We all know the end product of what you produce is mind blowing, but it's more about how can other people and young watchmakers have that same perseverance and get where you are in 10 or 15 or 20 years time.
But there's one important thing also, that there's a passion. And for instance, you know, I'm working, but I've been always working a lot. Like this morning, I wake up 5 o'clock. I was here before 6 o'clock. And I'm still coming back, got lunch, dinner, but I will come back. I'm working all the time. Every day it's 12 hours. It's normal for me. Last weekend I was working. This weekend 3 days off, but I will work again. I have things to do, and I like to do, and it's nice. There's nobody, so I can concentrate to do some stuff. So nothing comes in. If I work 8 hours per day, you just forget it. You have to have a passion, and without passion, it's impossible. And then it's also one other thing which is important. If somebody thinks money, it's already on the wrong track. Immediately, because then you do all the decisions by only thinking by money. When for instance, with what I'm doing, you have to think what you want to do, and you have a new model and watch, whatever, and you should have a vision or long-term vision, not that now I will make quick money. Quick money, it might come, but the next one doesn't come anymore. And it's important to have a long-term vision and think about what you are doing, and you don't think about the money, that how you can make more, and how you can. By thinking that, we end up doing bad decision, and then we can see that a lot of independents, they are no more independent, they are depending because they have a financial partner, and then they are like a small dog, and then you are that now you do this and that, and you are no more free to do what you want to do. But
that's what I try to tell people, that in each one of these shows is exactly what you just said. Then you're no longer independent. You might look like an independent outside to other collectors, but someone is really telling you what to do and how to produce. Like you said, you're on that leash, and that's not healthy for artists. We are true independent watchmaking is true artists creating what's inside of us, meaning you're creating what is inside of you for somebody's wrist, and you'll be gone, but all your timepieces will be here forever, because you build them the same way I build mine, because we've been trained the same way. We've done a lot of restoration work, so we know we have to overbuild everything. If you make whatever gears or pinions or wheels are in your timepiece, you're making them way thicker than they ever needed really to be to actually function as corporate watch makers, companies would make. So your watches will be here just like Breguet's are still here. That's the way we build them. Your bridges are made out of German silver, and they're handmade because it's passion. If we switch that up and somebody is writing all the checks and saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, you can't do this, you can't do that, it doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work at all.
No,
so I also stress, Kari, a new kind of way for collectors that are possibly watching this, to help young watchmakers who may be making their first timepiece, coming out after they've gone to school and some restoration maybe for 5-10 years, that when that young watchmaker puts his drawings out there, there are some people that have expendable money that might want to give that watchmaker and entrust in him money up front. Pre-order those watches so he can exhale and breathe and get a Shaolin 70 with all its accessories and maybe a Hauser M1 and make his art, and he'll make it for you and it'll be badass. But to help independent watchmakers and watchmaking who come out of school and they've spent many years and all their money getting where they are, but they need a little more help. And there's people out there that do that. And I find that they should, we're kind of pushing that.
To support the independent. I have a couple of questions that I can see turning up here, folks. One is from Captain Forrest, who is watching us. And question is, what is the most difficult discipline in watchmaking that you've had to learn? I imagine that each one of them, be it from polishing to cutting to grillage to hands, or every one of them has its own certain level of difficulty. It's the question, what's the most difficult discipline or watchmaking skill to learn and master?
For me,
according to Kari.
Difficult, I don't find nothing really difficult, but what we need is a passion to be able to concentrate. And as an independent watchmaker, there's so many things that to do a watch like today, what we are doing, but there's other things which are involved. That there's the creation, that to be creative, you are doing something, and then that technical realization. But then, end of the day, you have to finish the watch, but you have to be also sell the watch and deliver. But also take care that things runs. And I think like watchmakers, we don't have and this financial side as well, because we have to be able to at least calculate that my workshop is running and I can see the future. If I'm not able to invest for the future, it's a dead end. There's no future.
You've had a great ability at being able to do that, because you're
the most difficult for us is it's not really the watchmaking by himself, but the more difficult is the old techniques. For instance, engine turning. There's no education anymore. You see how to do the Geneva stripes with a wooden disc. You are in machines, but there's no operation instructions. You can find a machine how to polish the pinion with the old. We have few machines that you can polish the pinions. So we have a wooden disc, but how you will set up the machine, which type of polishing paste you use. For instance, for that, we end up to do the polishing paste by ourselves because it doesn't exist. How you will burnish the pivots? Well, you do one watch, you can burnish, but then you have a big pivot, for instance, for the barrel arbor by hand. It doesn't work anymore. So you need a machine. So how you use the machine to burnish the big pivots. So they're all kind of questions, and you don't have any answers, but you have to study by yourselves. We are cutting jewels. I did cut jewels for one watch. It's okay because I took perhaps 2 days to do, but today we have to find a way that we can spend 2 days to make one jewels, because then it's 50 watts. It's 100 days. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to find a way, the tool, and you have to think about how I will do it, that it comes nicely, it's good, and it's in the right measurements, and all these techniques there's no written instructions anymore, and that's.
Are you perpetuating those old techniques? Are you through your work, through what you do in your atelier, through Konglemine, are you educating and keeping that historic hand alive?
Yeah, so for me it's clear that all the know-how what we are doing, it's not the know-how of the one person, it's the know-how of the workshop. So
Wow, yeah.
it have to be written that everybody can do, and that's what we are doing in the workshop, that many watchmakers, they can do many operations. It's not only one person, and it's important.
I totally agree. That's kind of what I have here in the United States, which obviously it's a lot more difficult here. We can't even not just find the machines, but there's no one here that's ever run one in the history of the world. The only companies we had here was Bulova, Hamilton, and everyone is gone, and all those machines are either destroyed or gone. I know most of the Bulova stuff was destroyed because I actually went to the Bulova School of Watchmaking for 4 years here, way before Wolstep. And so that's what I'm setting up my shop here as well. There's no instructions in how to do a Coste de Genève or circular Coste de Genève, or there's nothing. We can only pass down that knowledge. Or someone, like I keep saying, should head off if they can to one of the few Swiss schools who are starting more and more to have these machines in the schools, because they're realizing the importance of independent watchmaking of our era. It's exploded in the last 10 to 15 years, as you can see, Kari. Yes. It's not when we started, we looked at Paul Gerber, we were like, oh, wow, there's one dude making his own stuff. I can do it. I know I can do it, right? Yeah. And now it's like me and you, if we go on Instagram, everyone says, I'm a watchmaker, and they're making their own watch, but we know it's all e-bosh, but they don't. Everything that Kari just said in the last 5 minutes or so is so important. You need to rewind it and listen 3 more times. Even he had to sit and find the pastes or make pastes that don't exist. We are all in the same boat as Kari. Everyone I've talked to who is a true traditionally trained watchmaker, we're all in the same boat. We all speak the same language. And if you've watched a few of my interviews with different people, you're starting to see the same pattern. Even for us, sometimes we don't have teachers. We find the machine, we know how the machine works, but we don't know how that machine works. We have to put it in use and figure it out. And maybe there's someone who's used one once, around the corner that Kari can call in because he's in Switzerland. And he never left that canton of Neuchâtel. I don't know why, but he never has.
Listen,
They must like the fondue now or something. They must be putting alcohol in the fondue.
I have a question here based on something you touched on a moment ago there, and it's how far independent watchmaking has come in 10 years, or I would say probably over the last 20 years. So when you started out, I think your atelier was around about 2000 and 2005.
It's independent.
Yeah. Are you surprised to see how far independent watchmaking has advanced? How the awareness of you and your peers, how much that has advanced in the last 20 years? Do you think? Is it a surprise to you, Kari?
It's very surprising, because when I see the when I started watchmaking, it was crisis. My colleagues, friends said, they said that it's nice you are doing education to be unemployed. It has changed. Then when you see that in Vostep it was a crisis, there was mechanical watch was almost gone, and when I started, it was quite arrogant atmosphere. Industry was taking the independence like a hobby makers, that they're and it has changed completely, and today the world has changed, the communication, and today people, they do understand that what we are doing, it's we need to have a when we do the movements and what we do, we have to have a plans, we have to have everything done in norms, that we have to be able to repeat, that we are not filing and we are doing something that it works, but then we can't do the next one because perhaps because it was perhaps by accident. It's not like that. You have to be precise. You have to draw and you have to think, and you have to do the plans which are correct. And that's something that today people, they do understand that and thanks to the modern communication.
Yes.
And the world has changed completely.
Well,
fantastic.
I think a lot of it has to do with, it actually affected me, Kari, and a lot of us around the world. During that crisis, I owned 3 after-sales service centers, independent. I run them myself. Do a lot of Patek Philippe restorations, but the meat and potatoes, the Rolex repairs, the Breitlings, and all the name brands. When they decided, hey, it's a crisis, so we're going to bring all the repairs into the main facilities for the brand themselves and not sell parts to any watchmakers. I think that got us all so pissed off that we couldn't make a living, that a lot of people from our era, thought again about making our own watch, because what else are we going to do? Because we couldn't get the parts. Luckily, I had, parts from way back with my grandfather. So I had lots and lots of parts to do vintage stuff. But I know a lot of my friends, they went out of business and rethought things. And that I think changed a lot of things. But communications has pushed this forward. And independent is not some little dude in his house making one watch a year. We can now, people of our age, Kari, we can find pre-owned Chablins, pre-owned Hausers, right? Yeah. When me and you came out of school thinking, hey, I want to make my own watch, those were still new machines and so far out of reach for our funding. There's no way we could ever have one of those, right? So it's the second generation now. So many other people can have a Hauser 2A and have all the machines here. And also, I think some of the Japanese and so the people who started building their own small CNC machines, who got pissed off because they couldn't afford the accuracy that we need. It pushed me to do mine. I built my first machine completely from my own design into independence and being independent.
And then it's interesting also that when I see, for instance, my workshop, that the work what we are doing here it's very demanding. Mm-hmm. So watchmakers or constructors, the guys who are drawing, and everybody, they have to learn all the time. It's not a factory job where you're repeating the work. so every day for everybody, it's a challenge, and we are doing new things all the time, and people, they are obliged to do. Watchmaker has to do all the operations, polishing screws, making a hairspring, bending a overcoil, doing Crossman inside curve. So they are involved with all the operations from the beginning until the end, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that everybody's motivated. If you're not motivated, it's impossible to do the work.
Well, working for you, Kari, is kind of like sitting in WOSTEP anyway, because you're telling them, this is a Grossman curve, you must do this, because I have already figured out all the wrong ways to do everything. This you will do. Don't worry about the rest. Here's the chart. You lay the hairspring on top of here. But, you know, Kari, you're doing exactly what, you know, I hope and strive to do a few years from now as my timepiece is ticking. Is help other young watchmakers.
Yeah.
Instruct them even up to the casing, like what I used to do at Chopard, you know, the old Simone, back to your seat. I see something in there, not good enough. And you hear him go, oh, that's the fourth time, you know. No, because later on, that person will do the same thing to another young watchmaker. We've got, you know, I'm sitting here. We also, me and you, the OCD we fight with ourselves. It couldn't be, you had to make a normal escapement. You know, you had to do a modified brigade double wheel. I mean, same with me. I'm doing the Louis Richard escapement in my watch. I don't know if you know what's inside my watch, but it's an open source watchmaking project with Luc Manet of Arts Mechanics. And Cyril Brevet-Nodat, who is part of AHCI. We developed an escapement based on the Louis Richard escapement, modified detent, miniaturized for a wristwatch. So not good enough. I make those parts, but this is make them out of titanium. Yeah. So this is 2 weeks worth of machining and 2 months worth of programming to do the pallet levers. You'll see more in a few days, but these just finished up. So that represents 2.5 months of my life just for this one plate. That's what independent watchmaking is. It's not good enough. It's never good enough. And when we complete something, it's the same as when I'm writing music or wrote music. It's never good enough. It's never done. We need someone in music, we need someone to come in a suit and tie to the recording studio and say, okay, guys, the album needs to be done and delivered on August 16th, because we'll be there till August 16th, 3027, if not. So it's the same with watchmaking, you know, putting it in its case and all that. It's never, someone has to really push it out the door. We can never let go. It's the same thing, which brings me to Kari. Music. Now, do you listen to music? Are you a metalhead? Were you a metalhead? What's being blasted in your place over there? What did you listen to when you were young? Or is it complete silence and you hail your place of business in complete silence? Tell us. Finish, master.
What kind of music do you like, Kari? Were you listening to heavy metal, or do you prefer, as I read in the book, jazz, rock, or do you?
I listen to everything. I do listen to everything.
Yeah.
Classical from rock, everything goes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You got some? Do you have any metalhead watchmakers there in your facility?
Not really.
No. Well, I'm gonna come visit.
You can't have
You gotta bring
everything.
the metal, man.
You can't work in cars, I'll tell you, and you can't have it every way up, like, you know. So we're not doing badly. But Kari, we've just hit the 1 hour mark there. So I am absolutely so grateful for you to join us tonight. A couple of questions, and one more question from one of our viewers is Shane Snyder, I think in Australia. And Shane's question is, it's hard to answer, I imagine. There it is. How will independent watchmaking change post coronavirus?
Good question.
I think it's a good question. It's hard to answer. Nobody can see it.
Well, like for us, it doesn't change at all. I mean, we have more work than before.
You're more work than before. So
yeah,
I can see that with a lot of independent brands that a lot of the big companies who have their own boutiques, their own single brand boutiques, they've all had to close down. All the city centres are closed down. But that's not really the way that the independent watchmaker works. He is not relying on the high street jeweler to be selling your watches. You've built up a different route to market. And one thing I have noticed over the last 8 or 10 weeks since the coronavirus really took hold was that all the independent guys I've been speaking to have never been busier. Is that the same with you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that in this modern world also that people, they realize that there's also the human values that when you're working with the independent, then you can work with the individual. It's not the brand or the brand manager or whoever. And when you're working with the independent, it's the same person who is behind, and he's behind of his workshop and his name. And when it's a brand, it's different. It can be the next day, so because he's perhaps kicked out, and it's again another person, and you don't have the same feeling with the brand, because the brand will change behind, and that's a big difference. And I can see today that there's more and more people, they want to know the person behind and work with this person. And then, of course, it's a question of the trust afterwards, which is very important.
And Kari, before we head out, I did want to touch upon your love for using the Rose engine, and let everyone know who doesn't know that Kari owns, as far as I'm concerned, the finest watchmaking dial factory on our planet, as far as guilloche. So not only did he want to do everything himself and have the extreme OCD to make his own movements, have everything and truly in-house, because Kari's machine shop and everything he has mainly is in his house, including the CNC machines. But separate from there is another factory where he employs some of the finest guilloche people and has some of the finest machines that there are, even stealing our United States machines back over to the Swiss cheese land. So just fill us in a little bit, because I know you're going to be making some of my dials.
Yeah. So the dials. Well, I noticed that it was too difficult to survive. Like, dials are difficult in the way that I was doing always my hands, but then the dials they were difficult. That we were doing the machining, engine turning, and then the external dial factory was doing the finishing of the dials, so the colors and so on. And it was difficult with the delays and all that, and then it just happened that in our area that one factory was in bankrupt, and I was lucky enough to buy that.
Right place, right time.
Inside, I mean, there was a lot of restoration of the building, but there was all the machines necessary, all the galvanic parts and so on. But the building I've been renovating that since. But it was, for us, it has been really, really good. And also that I'm trying to provide service for the independents, because Switzerland, it's very interesting that it has been, all the suppliers are giving the service for the industry, and the industrial companies, they're much bigger. They need more parts, thousands or hundreds or whatever. And then it's difficult to get individual parts or individual dials. So that's
So Kari, this
independent watchmaker has difficulty getting those parts. But so I have noticed that come to me, I could find your dials everywhere from Helsinki to Oldenzaal in the Netherlands, and throughout the industry. Comblamine has been a fantastic asset for the entire independent sector because it has allowed some of these other great names to flourish, to create even more extraordinary and more beautiful timepieces. And Comblamine has been a big part of helping that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And then it's also that we are watchmakers and we are looking at the movement, but we should also think about the rest of the watch, because when we are wearing the watch, we are looking the face of the watch, which is it's also as important as the movement behind. So it's not one. So everything is together. It's also the case, and it should be nice to wear and all these things. And for me, the aesthetical part is also important. I mean, the movement should run, that's for sure, but it should be nice as well. But the dial also, it should be nice to look. I mean, but of course, that's also the beauty of the independent. So we are so different when we are looking what I'm doing or what Bjarne is doing. So we are not, or the Betun.
Right,
So,
but Kari, what the problem that young watchmakers and all of independent watchmaking has is the same problem that we had when we were young trying to do this, is what you just said. We can only buy parts if we can find those parts in massive quantities, because especially if starting out, if you need some eBosch parts, even if you need screws, it's impossible to buy, you know, small amounts of anything. If you need jewels and you want to do your first watch as an independent and you need to buy jewels, you know, they want you to buy 500 or 1,000 of one size. We need many sizes in a basic movement. And it gets it's beyond the reach of anyone, and then they retreat, and then their art never gets to be seen to the world. So we thank you so much for small quantities of dials are able to be produced. We, as watchmakers, we all know how hard that is, because it's all in the setup of everything we do. Even if it's to make one barrel or one dial or one staff, it's the setup. You know, to make more than one, you know, it's the machine or the human machine just running. And that's the problem of independence that all collectors should know when you are ordering one of our timepieces. It's beyond passion. We have struggles, endless struggles at all levels to produce small quantities. People who are only making 10 watches a year and they're masterpieces, or 5 watches a year. That's really, really hard, because where is he going to buy 5 of everything, or 6 in case he makes a mistake, which he will? we're all right, Kari?
But anyway, I think that also that even though the work is not always easy, but it's good when it's not easy, because it has to be a little bit tough, because when things are tough and when you get things ready, then you have a pleasure.
Yeah.
And that's what I love.
It's something very special.
It's also tough for every day. It's not easy. There are always things that you have to find solutions and so on.
And sometimes we have to be yelled at. It's very, very the same way as music. You know, you don't want to write a song like that. You know, I come from that heavy thrash metal kind of music that I invented, with people always saying, well, why don't you slow it down, get on the radio, make a hit. You can write a hit in 2 seconds. It's so easy. The stuff you make, it's like jazz. It's so complicated. Slow it down, make it easy. And it's the same in watchmaking. When we first come out of school, we want to show off and show not how fast we play guitar, but we want to put all the mechanics on the front. And it looks like, you know, and as we get older, right, Kari, somebody has to keep pushing you. Kari, come on, Kari, put the balance wheel on the front. Come on, Kari, put the balance wheel on the front. And then you finally did it. And look, it's all over the place. Look at Kari's balance wheel on the front.
Yeah.
We always have the moral of the story is sometimes we do have to be pushed. But when we are pushed, we make, you know, our art, again, our art. And that's what Kari did.
Yeah.
With his timepieces. The Distinct 8, his idea is so scrambled. It's so beautiful. It's one of my favorite timepieces. A complication that I've ever seen. It's just genius. It's simplistic genius, because I've seen, and Kari's seen, some of the most complicated timepieces ever on our benches. We've seen it. And I guess for me at least, I like I retreat. I've accomplished those goals and been inside all those and seen. It's kind of like working on a Ferrari. You know, it's always going to be busted. Some 3 months later, it's coming back on my bench. And when I built something for myself, I want it to be simplistic. If it's going to have a complication, it's going to be a simplistic complication that's completely overbuilt, like they built old American muscle cars. Simple, basic. How many less parts can I use to do the same complication that somebody else is using 21 parts for something similar? I want to use 4 or 6, and that's the way I like to build. And I think Kari has the same. I think the same philosophy. That's why his stuff's bulletproof. It's bulletproof.
Well, at least with one last question, if I may, for 1 hour 10. Kari, this is a question because you always strike me as a man who, for a start, I wouldn't like to get into an argument about watchmaking with you, right? Because I think you know everything you know, and you probably know everything I know as well. So but in this day and age, 2020, Kari Voutilainen on a watch represents something very special to a lot of the most discerning, the most demanding, and the most exacting of collectors in the world. People who appreciate the finesse of every little detail, from the tiniest screw head through to your dials or the beautiful hands that you create. You must be aware of this. How does that sit with you, that you are creating timepieces now that in 100 and 200 years' time, people will be looking back on Kari Voutilainen watches in the same way as they look back on Breguet, for example?
Yeah, because for me, the Breguet is the most, when I see, I've been lucky enough to restore quite a few of watches, those pocket watches made by him. And I do admire because when you see his watches at that time, they were very avant-gardist. He was first to engine turning dials. When you look his movements, he was inventing things or somebody, but he was the first to use this. And when you see his the quality of the work, I mean, they didn't have a great steel at that time. But when you see the barrels 200 years old and they without any play, you start wondering that how he did that. You see the repeaters and the racks are without any play. So they were thinking how to do, and they were also technical solution. When you see those like cylinder X cable, that they call that the tile, the ruby cylinder, how it's made, the setup, how the small diamond is set it on the balance jewel pivot. It's when you see these things, you're just wondering. And I'm
There's no precedent for this,
And these watches, like Breguet watches, after 200 years old, they are running like new watches, and that's what I personally I would like to do. That in the same spirit, that do things which they do last, and then you have the whole philosophy behind that. You're not making small tiny screws, and you are doing real screws, and you're doing real bridges and the main plates and so on. And then end of the day, watch is perhaps a little bit thick, but it's strong. And you can push hands and it doesn't bend. I mean, when you're pushing the hands, when you're doing the casing and so on. So it's the whole philosophy behind.
Look at that from Tim Jackson over there in Solana Beach in California. Some say Kari and Louis Breguet could be brothers.
So again, like before we end, Kari, I'm going to reiterate what you just said and what I said previously. Is if the watch is a little thick, I want the collectors to understand what people like Kari and myself we have seen so many timepieces. It's wonderful to have a thin watch or that kind of thing, but we build things that are going to last hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and we overbuild them. If the watch is a little thicker, and we're not building fashion pieces, we're building brick shit houses. Pardon my language, but that's what we're building. They're built to last. They're built, and not just built, but the design in our heads, and the way we're trained is it's got to be overbuilt. We have to study what kind of metal that we need, what kind of metal will last, what kind of metal did Breguet use in his barrel, because we've seen the metal the types of metal that don't last, and we just overbuild everything. We're putting our name on something. It's not somebody else's name. It's not a corporate name. So somebody's going to be digging our timepiece up way past we're dead and gone, and we want to leave that same legacy. As we see, like Kari said, Breguet come across his bench, or for me, early Patek Philippe's in the beginning of wristwatches, all those vintage stuff that came across my bench early on. You pick up one of Kari's bridges and take it off. It's that thing that happened to me the first time I did take apart an old Patek Philippe. Was he's doing perlage, not just you take the bridge off and look underneath the bridge. He's decorated that, okay, and then look down on the main plate. He's decorated that with perlage. Now he gets that. We don't have to do that. None of us have to do that. It's not necessary. The only person that sees that is the watchmaker that's going to repair the timepiece. But that is the above and beyond of the top of the top of the top, and then above that. And that's what Kari does. And I know all his watches are built that way because we've seen that. Because the first time we see that, right, Kari, we go, whoa, check it out. Why did they decorate under here, right? And you sit back, right? You throw your tweezer down, and you're like, "Holy shit, man! That's freaking amazing!" Right?
Ethics,
right?
Ethics.
It is, yeah.
So you can going through the minimum.
Exactly. Exactamundo.
Yeah. No shortcuts. Look, Kari, it has been an absolute pleasure and a real honor and a highlight for me. One of my highlights. I have to say, I'm so impressed with all of the guests that we've had on our show. We've had the wonderful Eva Loiva, we've had John McGonigal, Mark Genie, we've Raul Pages, Peter Speakmarin, and yourself. These are the very, very best watchmakers and artisan horologers in the world. It's a great, great pleasure for me to have Kari Voutilainen on our show. I hope sometime we'll get the chance to do it again, because I'd love to know what the interest in Tintin is, because I'm a huge Hergé fan. And I wanted to know, who do you identify with most in Tintin? But we will leave that for another day. For now, Kari, thank you very much indeed. And
Kari, I want to say thank you very much for, we know you don't do many of these, but we thank you for hopefully giving knowledge to all the young watchmakers and collectors out there of what's behind the scenes, behind the man. We know you're very busy. You run many companies, and with an iron fist, an iron finished fist. And I just greatly appreciate you giving this knowledge back and helping other young watchmakers. That's the most important part that we can do as instructors and past instructors, is to pass on our knowledge. And we so greatly appreciate you for doing that. And now next time I'm over in Switzerland, I'll come and infiltrate some metal into your metal building.
Brilliant. Well, listen, we're going to sign off. We're going to sign off, everyone, and I would like to thank everybody for watching In the Metal again, episode number 7. It's been fantastic. We're finding our way every week. I think we're getting better, and we're refining our art. But it's been an absolute pleasure. So, Kari, you wait on, and after we're done here, and we'll say our goodbyes. But from now, from me, I wish you a goodbye, Dan.
Peace out, everybody. Talk soon.
Kari, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.